Welcome all to another episode of the Jokatech podcast. It's your host, the one and only Jokatech. Now, this week I just want to discuss two major topics of concern. One of them being toxic streamers and how trolling is now becoming the new heroic feat. And another topic I wanted to discuss is the monetization of the video game industry and how everything is becoming so overwhelmed with microtransactions, it's literally ruined the experience. Now I'll start with the latter first because it's sad for me to see Nintendo kind of giving into that same kind of mindset. In the past few years, Nintendo first subscribed to the online money milking scheme. Now they've subscribed to the constant update scheme. And now it's, patches upon patches upon patches. The latest Smash Brothers that was released has been patched more than I believe any other Nintendo fighter or title that they've ever done in the past. Nintendo usually has a philosophy. We make a system, or I should say we make a game or franchise, specifically one as big as a flagship title like Smash Brothers. They make it, they already have mapped out what they're going to do with the game, they execute it, then it's over. But this time, it seems like they're so overwhelmed with trying to support the fan base that they decided to buy into what Capcom's done and just have this almost endless stream of updates. But my fear is they're going to become like Capcom and that they compromise the integrity of the game. If you look at Street Fighter V, Street Fighter V is a harlot of a game. It was released in February of 2016, and the game has continuously changed completely. Every couple of months, non-stop, and it has no intention of stopping anytime soon. The meta's changed so much in the game. When Arcade Edition was first released, that's when Street Fighter V was at its absolute perfect state. But you had a bunch of stupid trolls crying about stupid, idiotic complaints that made no sense. And Capcom went into a panic and started doing patches and updates and nerfs and buffs. People that had characters that were already OP, but they wanted them to be more OP, and so they cried, and Capcom listened to them, buffed the characters, and the game became even more imbalanced. Now, the damage system is scaled so ridiculously in this game. You do a combo stream, you can do an EX combo stream to somebody with 10 to 15% health, and you will have to do a reset in order to get the KO. But somebody could do a tick throw, one or two tick throws, and take that same damage. Now, where's the balance? If you notice, when you see matches in Street Fighter now, that climactic feeling of really powerful combos and nice, clean comebacks and nice victories, you notice that you don't see that anymore because the damage is so scaled and everything is so nerfed. When somebody grabs the momentum and goes on a run, they've designed it so that the momentum continues to swing back and forth like a pendulum, so matches drag on. It's stupid because it ruins the quality of the match. The game already had enough comeback mechanics. It didn't need anything else. If you were going to do anything, then you could do something to the V-skill system. But no, they didn't want to hear that. So now that game is just about screwed up. I'm at the point where I really am not that excited about playing it anymore. I did get the latest characters. I finally broke down and got all the DLC, and I'm working on that right now. But it's just sad how much has changed from 2016. And Smash Brothers is starting to do the same thing. The meta's changing. When you start to change a game that's an intricate fighter, where people learn combos, and they learn how to execute them over a period of time, and then time goes by, and now they go back to play that character and certain combos don't link. Certain moves don't set up the same way. And certain move inputs are completely changed. Is that fair to a gamer that's dedicated himself to a character? Because you want to keep it fresh by switching it up? That's not right. Now when it comes to toxic people, I find it funny, man. I mean, I'm a subscriber to Zero's channel. YouTube master, former Smash Brothers master. Now, he has a YouTube channel where he posts some of his streams. He goes on Twitch and he likes to troll channels. And for some reason, that's become a heroic thing now. He's a former pro player, so he goes and finds pro players and he trolls them and laughs his behind off while trying to squeeze out cheap wins on them with cheap characters, as he calls it, gooning. The thing about it is, he calls other people tryhards. And he gets annoyed by toxic gamers. And he gets triggered by toxic characters and toxic gamers. But he's just that. He's a tryhard. And my thing is this. If you're such a tryhard, why don't you compete? If you're so good and everyone's so laughably beneath you and you're able to dominate people and your skill set's so high and you're in such a caliber, if you really believe in yourself that much, why don't you re-enter the pro circuit and try your hand against some of the top players? You like to troll them on stream. You troll Nairo, you troll Samsora, you troll other pro players on stream. Why don't you go step to them in a tournament though? You're cool with posting stream clips where you show all of your high points and you make it look like you just toyed with the person like they were your little BIT. But you don't want to go in front of a tournament where now you don't have control of the replay clips and now people can see you getting bodied. You post clips of you facing people that are not that good. People that clown like competition or not really taking you serious. And you post it like you're this dominant monster. Not that he's not a great player. He's a great player, but he's too much of an opportunist. Now, he's made the excuse, sometimes I used to get the slight itch, but honestly, I'm kind of done with that portion of my life because it's too much work to do streaming, etc., and to do gaming. No, I dispute that as well. To be honest with you, if Zero is kind of reminds me of a John Jones. I wanna like really give him that GOAT title and I wanna respect him, but he's too much of a coward heart deep down. He has a skill set, but he's so scared of being humbled and beaten and embarrassed that he nerfs himself. If he stayed in the professional circuit and he competed, he could have still streamed, and he competed in Ultimate and put all these skills that he's so proud of to the test. He could have been a champion in Ultimate. He could have held his reign through, but you know what it would have? It would have had a lot of humbling defeats along the way, and he can't stomach that. I don't want to hear the occupation is too much for you. Because if you did that, you would have been just like somebody else that does it with no problem. Justin Wong. Justin Wong has a YouTube channel that's even more interesting than Zero's. And he still travels, and he has a family. A household and a family, way more responsibilities. And he still travels and completes on the pro circuits at a high level, winning major tournaments in many games. He's what you would call him and Ryan Hart. Those are what you call like the top gamers, like the greatest gamers. Zero could have been up there if he had more confidence in himself, but he's so scared of being humbled that he steps back. I don't want to hear that excuse that you're too busy. Justin Wong has way more on his plate than you. Way more on his plate than you, business-wise, game-wise, and family-wise. And he's still able to compete and win at a high level. But your fear has held you back, because now, rather than take that throne as somebody who held it down in Brawl, 4, and Ultimate, that would have really put you absolutely at an untouchable spot. Now you're kind of this forgotten figure that people sort of feel was like the greatest at a point in time, but no one really put you up there like that. Because you didn't seize that opportunity. So you just keep trolling. I mean, if I ever run into him online, I'm going to make it my point to troll him. And that's what it's going to be.
Mile for raid.
thing too I wanted to speak on, and that's this era of censorship and the Me Too movement. Now, I never really subscribed to getting into that too much, but I'm just noticing that I said one time, what was it? It was a poem that I wrote that was on one of my older albums. I can't remember if it was Magnum Opus. I believe it was Magnum Opus. I believe it was in the song DNA, where I just spoke about how the more passionate people get, the more emotional they get, they're actually colder at the same time. Actually, I'm wrong. It's not DNA. It was the song Strategy. It was on the record Standing on the Corner, The Unborn Soundscapes record I did a few records ago. I mean, at this point I'm kind of losing track of records anyway, but no, I just had to deviate. I had to go off on this little tangent just simply because it just came to my mind when I'm just looking at society today. I just got flagged for another video. Now, the flags that I'm getting, and I would say the last 3 or 4 flags that I've gotten for my content on YouTube, it's been for content that I created well over 2-3 years ago. Old content from early 2017, 2016. What they do is they go and they comb through things and they pick up things that they consider offensive and they flag them. But what happens is we've entered an era of exploitation. You see, the line that I'm thinking of in the song Strategy was the line that said, emotional ones, they tend to be cold. The more give, the more take until you fall from the fold. And what that line was speaking about is that we see an emotional display by people. And this is more the case as time goes on. People will put on an emotional display in a performance, but everything is for visualization. Everything is for an aesthetic that they want to put out. But there's coldness underneath. People are getting colder and colder and colder every day. Every day people care less and less about the next person and more about themselves. But you see more and more of a display of emotion. It's like an inverse law. All that you see now happening is this exploitation of the sensitive era, of the snowflake generation. Everything is offensive. Everything is wrong. Everything is a problem and is rubbing people the wrong way. But the truth is, people really don't care. People really don't care. It's become the thing to do. It's become heartless, and it's become a pastime to now almost use sensitivity as subject matter. So it's like you're not really sensitive, you're not really affected by something, but now it's become cool to just pretend that you're offended by any little thing now. So it kind of correlates to that line. Emotional ones, they tend to be cold. The more give, the more take until you fall from the fold. At a certain point, you lose sense of self. People don't even really have an identity. It's just become fad to fad to fad. It was a track I did called Jigaboo Jam Session. I had just received a Tascam recording equipment, a device from a friend of mine, and I was testing the equipment out. It was very complex to use, and it took me several hours to get a handle of how to record and how to even use the interface. So I decided to do a quick little jam session and record something because I was likely not going to use the equipment again, even though I still have it. So I put together a little jam session. The horn sounds horrible on it. The quality sounds horrible, but I was trying to see how the drum patterns worked, etc., and all that stuff. So I put it together and I just called it Jigaboo Jam Session just for the heck of it. Harmless. I get a flag in the email maybe a week or so ago telling me this video has been taken down for promoting hate speech. It's an instrumental mix track. No words or dialogue on it. The title is called Jigaboo Jam Session. And so we're now going back and revisiting and we're looking at that title from a different angle, and now we're saying he's promoting hate speech. So of course I went to appeal it, and what do you think? They ignored it. It's the thing to do now. It's not about being genuinely affected or offended. It's the thing to do now to just be overly sensitive, pretend to be sensitive over every little thing. And that's where you see society going, just this slow spiral into complete inanity, where everything is just completely stupid. There's no thought process. Everything is robotic and automated. And you see it just permeating every nuance of industry. Both visual, audio, everything. And it's really a turnoff, but it's also a sign of the times. That's one of the reasons why I don't really put out and create much anymore, because there's not a platform of acceptance anymore. We now live in a world where nobody's listening, nobody's reading. Everybody is pretty much in robot mode. So when you speak or you create, you pretty much do it to yourself. You just create for yourself. Internalization. Like if I feel the need to internalize for another record, that's the only thing that's going to make me do another record. There's no inspiration to put anything out for people, because now you know you are shooting sound at complete brick walls. There's no receptiveness at all in there. There's no perception. Nobody's looking at things and weighing them out for what they're worth. Or the novel that I'm working on. I'm finishing that because it's more so finishing a thought. I don't put things out with any type of inspiration of acceptance anymore, because there's no longer a crowd of people that get it. Everyone's just completely closed off. And I laugh sometimes too, because when I see sometimes these old legends do these ciphers, like I saw DMX was doing some type of freestyle. He's doing a mix of his old tunes or whatever, old artists from bygone eras that had a high level of respect. When they come back and they do something and social media captures it, the response is just so organically different now. You just have a generation that just doesn't relate. Now, time passes and eras change, vernacular changes, culture changes. But the base things that make you a human, that make you a sentient being, they shouldn't change, but they have in human society. There's almost like there's nothing really connecting the humans of today to the humans of yesterday. Everything has been so fundamentally just completely destroyed. It's like two different species. So when you see the response, it's just so interesting to see the comments and the things people say. They're just so out of touch with everything that made a person what they were decades ago. It's just alien to humans today. So that's why that's why I've been pretty much quiet the last few months. I mean, on top of the fact that I had a lot of nonsense going on, I've also pretty much been low key. I haven't really been in creative mode that much. And again, largely as due to a lot of the drama that I'm dealing with. But you hit that point where you kind of have to cleanse your palate, so to speak. You don't want to let negative forces and foolishness around you blight you, because at the end of the day, they're winning. You want to create an environment where you can flourish, where your skill set can flourish. And if you feel creative juices, go with it. Don't stifle it. Sometimes, in recent past, I've kind of found myself going long stretches of time where I start to wonder if I want to create anymore. And it worries you a little bit because it's part of your identity. But then it'll all hit you at once, where you just suddenly you need to just get an idea out. So with the book, I had writer's block for a long time. And I'm just now breaking that, where I just finished 2 chapters within the last week. And actually I'm rounding up to finishing the book. It's good. The climax is pretty much what I'm completing right now, and then we're just going to round it out. And that'll be my 4th novel. But I can only do stuff like that with inspiration to finish an idea, to finish a thought. I can't do it with any type of thought of response, because you have to create automatically knowing you're not going to be understood. That's just the times that are here. And when it comes to music, I did plan on getting the record reviewed. I really want to get a review for Native Son and Inner Places, but I have mixed feelings about that. Because it's like, what does a review really mean anymore? There's no such thing as a diamond in the rough or a gem. It just doesn't exist. you have to ingratiate yourself by other means or in other ways in order to have your work appreciated. Work is not appreciated on its base merit any longer because there's just no connection to understanding anymore. So you put out something that's absolutely timeless, and at the end of the day, if it does catch on, it's only going to catch on based on social success, based on finding a way to get your hooks in another way, and then you backpedal to the album that you did. And I'm just kind of disgusted with that process. So that's why I kind of like fell out. I fell back a little bit. I started competitive, just playing in some competitive gaming tournaments and stuff like that. That's been sort of captured my interest a little bit. Most importantly, though, it's just been kind of like self-growth. And also just like I've been working on just a lot of decisions. There's a lot of things going on with me that I'll elaborate on in some time. But to be frank, the only other piece of work that's really been on my mind is completing my autobiography, because I had started writing one when I was going through a lot of drama. I think I would say, what was that, almost 10 years ago? I was going through some nonsense. It was a pivotal time in life because there were major things happening. It was a kind of a transitional period from one stage of life to another. And I just started writing it. At first it was more so just a reflective kind of thing. I was just writing from childhood forward. I just started writing about the earliest memories that I had. And then I just started writing and just going down the timeline. And then before I knew it, I was writing all the way into young adulthood, etc. And then I took a long break, never touched it again. I included some of those writings in my first poetry collection. And then a few years later after that, I then started to resume writing again. But it was very brief. It was only like maybe a chapter's worth of writing, and then I stopped again. And there were a lot of things I wanted to write that I never even did write into it. And then there's so many things now that I would put in there now. And I was just trying to figure out how I would go about it. If I wanted to do it audio, if I wanted to have someone else write it, or if I just want to just type it out and just get down to it. But there's definitely something that's been on my mind is finishing my autobiography, because I think you're at a point where it makes sense to write one when you reach that certain point of growth. We're now looking at your story from a third person perspective. You kind of see a lesson. You kind of see a lesson that can be told, a lesson that can be learned. That's when you're at a point where it's worth writing. It's not worth, keeping a diary is one thing, but it's not worth writing an autobiography for output when all it is just a sequence of events that don't lead anywhere. When you now have a resolving story and you now have a lesson that can be learned and something that you can look at and grow from, now you have an autobiography. And I think at this point I kind of reached that. There's still obviously more to be learned and more to be told, but I definitely think it's at that point where it's worth writing. So that's kind of renewed my interest in doing that. So over the next couple years, that's something I'm going to be in the works with writing. It's going to be very interesting because, when you're going through turbulent times, sometimes you're going through stuff that you don't really see the other side yet. And you just you just have that inherent feeling where you know that whatever the case may be, whatever the future holds, on the other side of the period that you're going through is going to be a lesson that's going to be beneficial for any reader of the biography. You just have that feeling. You just know when that's the case. That's kind of the point that I hit with this. So I say, you know what, let me start thinking about working on that. So that's something that's in the works. I'm going to continue that at some point. But record-wise, even though I love music to death, I can never stay away from music. I even started writing a couple rhymes, actually. I just don't feel that motivation for a record. It's going to take something special for me to do that. Because I said many times now, look how many albums I've done on fumes. Because if you recall, going back to, I would say after the Magnum Opus series, after I finished Coming of Age, ever since then, I've been saying, I'm not doing another record unless it's going to be collaboration, unless I get some type of input from another artist and I get something to spur me on in that regard. I'm not doing it because I'm tired of doing the same old approach. And I'm also tired of the same old response. But I would always say that, but then I would always have a new concept, because one thing about me is I'm not going to do a record unless I have a new concept. I refuse to do something that sounds like what I already did before. That's the way Miles was. That's the way I am. I've always been like that. But when I hear a new sound and a new concept, it's hard for me to keep quiet. So that's the reason why I made that stance, but I would always go back and contradict myself, and I would do another record because I had a new sound in my head. But at this point, I'll have concepts that come to me. I've even had a couple of songs that I've completely fleshed out, but it hasn't been enough for me to say, oh, that's it, I gotta do another record. It just hasn't been to that point. And I don't see that happening anytime, to be honest. I really think Native Son might be the last one. You know, I mentioned it to a colleague of mine, and he just kind of went silent. It's like, you know, it's always the same thing. You know, if I do a record, I do something for me I do it for myself, and I don't see any reason to do that, because there's definitely no reason to do it to be heard by listeners, because listeners don't exist. So, you know, bottom line is we'll look about this autobiography. That's the next thing in the works. Well, right now I'm finishing this novel. That's the main thing. That's a big project of mine that I'm proud of. And after that, we'll look at the autobiography. That's pretty much it. So as far as endeavors, unless things drastically change, that's what's in the works for the next couple of years. And stay tuned, because these are going to be big projects. So thank you for listening to another episode of the Jokatech podcast, and take care.